Hey all, what's up everybody? Tim here with today's SCE. Hope wherever you're at, you are crushing it and feeling awesome. Thanks so much for watching. So the title for today's shoot is How to Stop Fear in Its Tracks. And this subject is uber important because when you look around at today's society, people are absolutely gripped with fear. And everywhere I go, fear ends up coming up as a topic to discuss, and people want to know strategies as how to crush it and how to stop it dead in its tracks. And look at the way fear controls people's lives. Think about the way fear affected you, and I think about the way fear affected me and how many times I don't go for what I really want, how many times I've pulled back or taken the wrong actions that's given me the absolute wrong result. And think about your life, the times when you were afraid. What could you have done? What might you have done if you weren't afraid? And how has fear affected you in your relationships, in your finance, and in every single area of your life? It is prolific. But the awesome news is it doesn't need to be that way, that we can move out of fear. Now, I don't think you ever get to the point where you're finally totally delivered from fear. I think it's an ongoing battle, but as we get more mature and as we get better and better and better at it, we can start to kick fear in the tail and send it packing. And then each time we get a little better. So it's never gonna go away, but our ability to handle it and manage it gets better. So here's a little bit of an equation that I use to crush fear. I find it's to be super helpful. And once again, you're never ever going to stop feeling fear. Fear is going to come, and it's not wrong to feel fear. I like to consider it being tempted to feel fear. But even if you do feel fear, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't get all worked up over it. Understand it's part of being human, and it's going to happen. Everybody's afraid, from the world's best to the world's least. It doesn't matter. The world's most successful people have been afraid. Leaders in war and in athletic arenas and in business and in finance and even, folks on the home front. Everybody feels fear. It's natural. Welcome to the human race. But our ability to manage it and deal with it and crush it dictates how we're going to come out on the other side. So here's a quick process to follow as to how to absolutely stop it in its tracks. Number one is, if you're feeling afraid, acknowledge that you're afraid. What we resist persists, and if you try to pretend you're not afraid and you try to push it under the surface, it's not going to work. Eventually it's going to come up, and it's going to accumulate and accumulate and accumulate until it explodes in your life. So if you're afraid, acknowledge, yeah, I'm afraid. I admit it. I'm afraid of whatever the case may be. Or if you don't want to go that far, you can say, I've been tempted to be afraid, and it's on me. The fear pressure is on me. I feel it. It's trying to get me to cave. It's trying to get me to subdue. It's trying to pull me under and destroy me. So whether you actually want to feel that you're afraid or just feel that you're given the opportunity to be afraid, it's important to acknowledge it. Say, yes, I have the opportunity to be afraid, or yes, I am afraid. Once you get to that point, you come to the understanding that I don't need to stay in that state. So just because I have the opportunity to be afraid, or just because I'm afraid right now, I don't need to remain there. So you have to say to yourself, I am not going to remain in this state. I refuse to be locked into fear. I refuse to let fear control me. I'm not going to remain here. I might feel all this pressure, all this tension, all these emotions and thoughts flying around in my mind, but I am not going to accept this from me because I don't deserve this. I am bigger than this and better than this, and this is just trying to keep me from who I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to have, and where I'm supposed to go. Then the next step in the process is super important, because up to this point, once you get into that fearful state and it's floating around in your mind and your emotions, and you even feel it in your body, you've got to get out of that state and get into a state that's empowering. And the best way to do that is to shock yourself out of that state. And how I do it is I simply yell, no, or I yell, stop, or I yell, wrong. So as these thoughts, these fear emotions are trying to grab me and get hold of me, I acknowledge that I am afraid. I'm tempted to be afraid. I realize I don't want to be afraid. And then I cut it off. I say, stop. And then sometimes I need to say it 2 or 3 times, stop, or no. And usually just a one-word command is all it takes, but you gotta say it. You gotta say it out loud. And depending how much fear is coming at you, you may even need to yell it. And I found that when you yell it, it works even better. So when that fear hits, you're like, no, or you yell, stop, or enough. And then it stops. And then what I want you to do is I want you to not back away from fear. I want you to attack it. You are going to go after it. You're going to say, fear, I refuse to yield to you. I refuse to bow. I am the head and not the tail. I'm on top and not beneath. I am strong. I am courageous. I am not meant to be afraid. I am meant for victory. I am meant for success. I'm going to figure a way out of this. It's not as bad as it seems. It's going to be better than it seems. As a matter of fact, this very circumstance isn't going to make me. It's going to break me. And if this circumstance didn't happen, I wouldn't get to where I want to go, because I've asked to get to this destination, and this is just part of the process. So fear, I refuse to yield to you. You're not bigger than me. You're not stronger than me. I'm bigger than you. I'm stronger than you. Look at all the past victories I've come through. Look at the time I was sick and I got better. Look at the time I lost my job job and I got a better one. Look at the time when I was financially in trouble, but I figured out a way to make it work. Or when I was depressed and I went to that party or that social event and I felt better. And you start to attack fear. You start to attack it verbally with your words, and you start to remind fear of all the times when you were afraid in the past, or when it looked like things were not going to work out in the past, and you came through it successfully and you were delivered from it and you were able to sail through it. And you literally go after fear. You go on the offensive, because you know what? The best defense is a strong offense. So you're not going to just sit there and take it. You're going to attack it. And you attack it. You might need to attack it for 2 minutes, for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes. I don't know. But you attack it. You attack it out loud. You attack it with ferocity. And when you're done, then you drop into gratitude. Thank you that the fear is gone. Thank you that I'm delivered for it. Thank you that I was able to overcome it. Thank you that I was able to move through it. And that's the process. You acknowledge that you're afraid. You realize that you don't want to be afraid. You give that one word command to cut it off. You attack it with as much verbiage as you can throw at it, out loud, loud in its face, and then you wrap it up with gratitude. And that process may keep you free of fear for a minute, a day, a week, I don't know. But as soon as that fear comes back, you do it again. But here's what I found is once you beat fear up, once you kick it in the tail enough of times, pretty soon it's going to stop showing up in that area. It's going to try to show up in another area, but then you kick it in the tail in that area. And you stay at it, and you stay at it, and you stay at it. You maintain a warrior mentality. You refuse to yield to it. You refuse to let it control you and your life anymore. You refuse to let fear keep you from being your best and getting what's rightfully yours and what you are right to have, because you've been delivered from fear, right? I believe we are all children of the King, and fear is not part of our destiny. We are free from it, but we've got to do our part. We've got to go after it and attack it. And once again, if you attack it with the Word of God, that's the best weapon you can do at all. You just start throwing those scriptures at it. It'll turn it immediately and run in the other direction as fast as it can go. So that's the recipe to not only stop fear, but to crush it in its tracks. And if you practice it, and if you do it, I will guarantee you it will work. You got to get the words in your mouth, though. That is so important. You can't just fight thoughts with thoughts. You got to get the words in your mouth. Get that attack in your mouth, get that gratitude in your mouth, and watch it absolutely decimate fear. And watch how much the quality of your life changes and how cool it becomes in a really short period of time. So this is Tim from the LV, hoping you found that helpful. Have an awesome day. Don't tolerate fear. Crush it. Have an awesome, awesome day. I'll talk to you soon.